This is the really crazy thing about it, is that we can only see my reflection. I can't see how other people are perceiving me. Everyone perceives you different to how you see yourself. You can look at the same person in the mirror and have a completely different perception to what everyone else sees. And this is the crazy thing. And the thing I've learned over this year so far is we create this image based on stories and things that we've made up of stuff that's happened in the past. One of my biggest holdbacks in the last 2 years was because when I was a child, I went to quite a smart school. It was a posh school. It was an expensive school because I was spoiled rotten as a child, and because of it I was an ungrateful little git, for I wasn't really like the greatest when it came to gratitude and appreciation. You know, I was that kid who'd sit down under the Christmas tree at 6 years old, and you know, you wouldn't be able to see the tree because there were so many presents stacked over it. And it was because obviously I didn't have that kind of like relationship with my dad. He worked away, he worked hard, he did everything he needed to do to supply for the family. And as a compensation, obviously it was like, you know, we need to look after our son. So I was very, very fortunate, but I didn't see that then. So then when I went to, like, you know, I didn't acknowledge all the things and the things I'd been given us. And the real turning point was, you know, I was a super confident kid. I was the guy who'd say all the things, loads of friends, girlfriend at 5 years old. I mean, come on, man, yeah? I mean, loving life, right? And then I had this one teacher. I moved from year 4 into year 5. And unfortunately, I had a particular teacher who wasn't the most fond of me. Didn't like the way I spoke up, didn't like the way that I would communicate, didn't like the way that I was quite active or hyperactive. You can choose however you want. I didn't have a problem with self-expression, put it that way. And so she decided one day that I queued up at the desk to get my papers marked. And basically she looked at my paper and was like, it's rubbish, do it again, and shoved it across to me. And I was like, what the hell, what's this all about? And I was like, miss, I don't understand. What have I supposed to done wrong? She stood me up in front of the entire class and said, you're not trying, you're stupid, you're not putting in the effort, what the hell's wrong with you? In front of like 35 kids all sat at their desk, like shocked in horror, like what is this woman on about? And there was something like about that moment where I just started to question, like, am I even doing this right? And the next thing that happened was there was a parents' evening that night, and I remember walking up the staircase to go to the office with my parents following me, and they sat me on this bench outside. All three of them went in, teacher and two of my parents, and they shut the door behind them, and I could hear them screaming at each other in that room. And I don't know what it was, but it was like I had all these questions buzzing through my head, and the only things I can remember was like, what have I done wrong? Am I a bad kid? What have I, you know, I don't understand. Why is this happening? And not long after that, I would do things like talk to trees and stuff like that, and I just went very inside myself. I didn't start to express myself. I didn't really connect with other people because I had this real issue of like, I'm just not good enough, obviously, because it doesn't matter what I do, it doesn't seem to impress this person. They seem to not like me. And most of my life, up until about the age of 28, I just felt really secluded, really unsure around people, and I was really like insecure. I didn't want to speak to people, I didn't want to connect with people because I just thought, why would they be interested? You know, I mean, can't be right, can't be good enough for this. It wasn't until I really started, you know, going into joining SFM and doing all these things and actively engaging again, when I started to see, actually, you have got some value to share, you have got something. And it was when we started to break that down and you're having conversations with other people who've had similar experiences and stuff like that, you start to look at yourself in a slightly different way. And really the last few years have just been kind of breaking down all of these old stories, these things that run your life, because every time you end up in a situation in front of people, you freeze. Why? Well, it's because you're still recalling these things that have happened to you in your life that are still like, they've got you by the throat, metaphorically, kind of thing. You don't want to speak because you just see that, you know, the biggest predictor of our future is our past. We take our past with us and we put it in front of us. It's so well known. You know, some people are like, they'll say to me like, I don't know what it is, I can never seem to find the one in a relationship. I can never seem to, you know, have a good relationship. And it's like, well, tell me about your past relationships. Oh, don't get me started. They were like this, they were like this, they were like this. I'm like, curious. you've just said 4 people and they all seem to be the same. Why do you think that is? And it's like, oh, because they're like that. And I'm like, interesting. What's the only one thing that's consistent in all 4 relationships? You. And it's the same thing with me. That's how I was with most of my relationships, with people, with partners, etc. And it's like, because you take this "I'm not good enough," this feeling that you've had in the past, and you bring it into every event in your future. And until you start to understand that this is why my life is as it is, you don't become the architect of your own future. You can't start designing how things are actually going to look. And so, it's taken me until my 30th, it's now March 25th, 2020. I'm 30 years old to finally get that everything in my life that's happened since that point has been on me. Because it's been so quick to blame, it's that teacher, it's that person, it's this issue. First step to changing anything is you've got to own your own shit, metaphorically, pardon my French, right? You've got to own your own stuff. You have to own your own journey. And you have to step out and say, you know what? Everything I do, I have to stop pretending I've got a time machine, like I can predict what's going to happen. And you have to remain open to the possibility that actually, what if it doesn't work out like that? And just be willing to step and keep doing these things over and over again and be okay with failing. Because you're going to get to a stage at some point that if you keep doing it over and over and over again, it's going to improve. And that's the thing that holds so many people back, is because they try it for the first time, they go deep inside, they judge themselves and they cut off. It takes time. And we have to be brave enough to step out and do that and keep doing it until eventually it all just comes together.
No, before you logged on, then he thought, oh, let me be productive. So we had another window up above the Zoom one.
Oh my God.